right, here we go, Chris. We're ready for episode 11 of the Six Scale Scavengers podcast. We focus on hot toys in Marvel and Star Wars. I'm Brian Fontaine, joined as always by my good friend, Chris Letty. Chris, we made it to episode 11. This will be our last episode of 2018. We got a late start this year. We haven't discussed this yet, Chris, but I think we're going to continue on into 2019.
Breaking news, people. We are going to be going into 2019. Looking forward to it.
It's been a fun endeavor, and we try to stay as humble as we can just because of our little niche podcast here. We're not focusing on all the hot toys, and we're not out there buying tons and tons of things, but the sense of community I think we've been able to help foster, I think, has been one of the things I'm probably most proud about this, and definitely looking forward to continuing that into the new year.
Totally, man. I love it. I love what's going on so far, and I can't wait to see where things lead to.
All right, let's just get right into it. So we've got a jam-packed episode here, our much anticipated episode 11, where we will be giving each of our top 5 hot toy figures in the Marvel and Star Wars licenses from 2018. And thanks to our great listeners and our private Facebook group, Six Scale Scavenger Collectors, we have, I believe it was either 16 or 17 submissions, Chris. We're going to be able to give our community top 5 as well. And I want to say it was pretty interesting, very fascinating to tally all those. And when we get to that part of the show, I'll tell everybody, what we came up with, our extremely scientific and problematic formula. Not problematic. I love numbers, so I was a geek about that. I'm a geek about hot toys. I'm a geek about spreadsheets and checklists and all that other fun stuff. So we'll be getting to that. We're also going to give a collection update. We got some interesting things to share with that. And our feature figure of episode 11, our audio review will be Iron Spider from Avengers Infinity War MMS 482. So, Chris, being the end of the year here, we're getting ready with Christmas coming up shortly at the time of recording. New Year's. This is the first time since 2015, Chris, that we don't have a brand new Star Wars film to watch the holidays. And I know a lot of people are getting kind of nostalgic about, within the last couple of days, it's, the anniversary of The Force Awakens. It's the anniversary of Rogue One. It's the anniversary of The Last Jedi. And however you feel about any of those films, Chris, I just feel like this holiday season time has really become synonymous with a new Star Wars movie, and it feels weird that we don't have one right now.
It feels super weird. I can't believe it. I wish that we were seeing Solo right now, but it is what it is. Next year we can bring it right back to episode 9 in December, right at Christmas time. It's kind of a bummer. No big Star Wars movie to look forward to. I guess we'll just have to watch them at home, huh?
Yes, we will. So speaking of watching at home, I think we teased it about last time. And Chris, I can't remember if the last time we recorded episode 10, if the Avengers Endgame trailer had been out yet. I don't think so, because I feel like I would have remembered talking about this. But, it's kind of old news at this point. We've got Captain Marvel coming up. We've got Avengers Endgame coming up. We're big fans of the MCU here. We just started another MCU rewatch because, what's better to do than start watching all these great films again. I think I convinced you, Chris, to go with chronological order this time. So I got to get your early take. What are you thinking about it so far?
Yeah, you know what? I've never done the chronological thing. You had given me that list from the 10th anniversary book and just gave me the idea. So I started with Cap and went to Ironman, and I've now reached my way. I'm about halfway through Thor. It's a slow burn, this MCU watch for me, finding bits and pieces here and there, but I actually like it. I feel like it's going to give me a different perspective, and I'm I'm really curious to see how things are going to go once I get to like the Guardians movies and stuff, watching those back to back. And but I'm loving it. I Avengers Endgame trailer really got me going, and I had to jump back in. I had to rewatch them. So yeah, and I'm just dying to get to Infinity War and watching that again. It's been a while since I've watched it, and then I want to get to Ant-Man and the Wasp, and it just, I just love all these movies in one way or the other. So, how about you? You started?
Yeah, so I found the time to do Cap First Avenger. Went to Iron Man. God, I love Iron Man. That just got me with all the nostalgia there. That's the one that kicked it all off. So you and I had an interesting chat about what to do with the Incredible Hulk, and I feel like that's kind of the kind of sort of in the MCU, but not really. So I was like, I just it sounds blasphemous to say this, but I don't really enjoy the film all that much. And I mean, there's Thunderbolt Ross, there's connecting it, there's talk about the super soldier serum. Tony Stark makes a cameo at the very end in the end credits. So there's some stuff there, kind of telling the origin a little bit of Hulk. And I was just like, I really just don't want to sit through this. I really want to get to the other film. So, Chris, what I did is I just watched the action scenes with the Hulk. So I spent about 15, 20 minutes going through when he's on, I think it's Culver University. And then at the very end when he's fighting Abomination. So that kind of got my fix a little bit there. I'm now about an hour into Iron Man 2. I just saw the scene with the Mark V armor. And God, I love that scene. Love that armor. Same thing. Very slow burn when you've got you've got your career, you got your family, the holidays. You don't get a lot of time to just sit there and watch movies all the time. So you gotta watch it in 15, 20-minute spurts every so often, but it doesn't make them any less enjoyable. And, hopefully by March rolls around, we've got Captain Marvel will have just wrapped up Infinity War.
It's always fun watching these Marvel movies, man. I love it.
All right, before we kick into news, and Chris, I feel like we just mentioned it not that long ago about just thanking everybody getting us to 500 downloads of the podcast. And at the time, that just blew my mind. And not even a few episodes later, Chris, we're over 1,000. And I looked at our numbers earlier this morning, and it kind of was symbolic to see the number 1138, which obviously is a lot of meaning from Star Wars. And even with just putting out one episode up to this point in the month of December, we're already on track to almost beat our numbers from November. So, if you're new listening to the podcast, or you've been with us since the beginning, or you joined us along the way and maybe you've caught up on the back episodes, before we even kick off here with the news, I just have to say thank you again. I mean, this is just Chris and I every 2 weeks or so when we've got free time to talk about what we love, and the fact that people also enjoy that and have embraced that community of helping people out, finding out about other Hot Toys podcasts that are out there, other websites, other collecting groups. It's really, that is one thing that when we set out to do this, Chris, I didn't think was going to happen, or maybe it would happen way down the road. But I think that part is, to me, the coolest thing.
I got to echo exactly what you said. I just want to thank everybody. It's been great interacting with everybody so far. I love the way things are trending for us, and I'm just totally grateful. And I didn't expect to get, this many downloads so far through, 10 episodes, but we'll just see how things roll with the podcast, and we'll just keep interacting with all the listeners and our friends in the group and all that stuff. And yeah, I'm just enjoying it.
All right, news time. And boy, Chris, do we have some news. I think it was a couple episodes ago. We had no new figures dropping. But let's kick it off with a character that I know and love, Luke Skywalker. Chris, we finally got the much teased Endor version. And what was a surprise to me and a lot of others in the collecting community, getting a deluxe version of that Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker that combines essentially the throne room, the Jabba's palace version, the Endor, and also from a deleted scene on Tatooine when they get back to the Falcon. And I, to be honest, Chris, I don't remember that deleted scene specifically. So it's just like, I think some people were a little miffed that they didn't give us that deluxe version up front. To me, to each their own. I mean, they're going to try to release as many characters as they can. Luke Skywalker is one of the most popular figures they have in the Star Wars line. There's people like me that have, try to have a focus with him. So this is the 106th and 107th Star Wars figures released under the movie masterpiece line. So let's talk, Chris, first about that Endor one. And I know that it's one that we'll talk a little bit about strategy wise and kind of the collecting update. I have to admit, just spoiler, it was not a day one pre-order for me, and I'll tell everybody why when we get to our collection update. So the Endor version was MMS 516. It's going to retail for $243. It's going to come out next year, so thankfully we got a little bit of time with our wallets. And then the deluxe version, MMS 517, is going to retail for $282, and that will be again out next year. So, Chris, any just overall thoughts about both of these?
Well, first off, I was kind of surprised that I thought we're potentially going to see an accessory pack.
Yeah,
that was my biggest thing. I was very surprised, but I initially, both versions look pretty sweet. That the deluxe one, I mean, it looks like he's straight out from the movie, like the poncho and the goggles. And then obviously I'm a huge Endor fan. Luke with the commando helmet and the poncho and everything. They both look like great figures, and it's got me kind of like, might go for that Luke at some point, but yeah, it's not a day one pre-order for me, just because where I'm at with my collecting, it's strictly Marvel at this point. I mean, I can see them being successful figures selling wise.
Yeah, there's just something in general that I think we've been seeing as a pretty strong trend with Star Wars figures, and it kind of pains me to say this, Chris, because I think worldwide, I think Marvel has definitely surpassed Star Wars, at least in Hot Toys collecting. And I think just Marvel is more popular in Asia than Star Wars is. And I think that has a lot going for it. It pains me, Chris, to see so many of these really desirable, really great figures on the Star Wars side just sit there on Sideshow and get to the point where I figured the Darth Vader from Empire Strikes Back, Chris, was going to go like waitlist almost like immediately and already be sold out. And at one point during all these different Geeksgiving and Spooktacular, they were offering like free shipping on it. And a lot of the figures, Luke, Return of the Jedi, the original one, at one point they were doing double reward points and stuff like that. So they're having to get creative with, the Star Wars characters, and knowing that there's deals to be had now. I guess I'm kind of giving my spoiler, what I was going to give a little bit later, but I'm a little reluctant to pre-order the Star Wars figures up front. And it pains me to say that because I want to be supportive of the line. And obviously, I'm a Star Wars fan. I always have been. And even Return of the Jedi is still like one of my favorite films. That one always gets me in the feels every time that I watch it. It's the one that I grew up with the most. But I also like saving money too. And knowing that there's some deals to be had now makes me wonder if I could still get the Luke Endor figure, maybe for free shipping eventually, or using it. I mean, I want to give Sideshow my business, Chris, but knowing that somebody may have it on eBay and we get one of those coupons and you end up saving some money. So I don't know. What are your general thoughts about it? I know that you're kind of armchair quarterbacking it because you're on the sidelines for the Star Wars stuff. You're kind of living vicariously through my collection, but I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, you do put up a good point there. There have been a lot of deals trying to move the product for Star Wars. So, I mean, maybe my statement earlier about it being a good selling figure, I mean, it might sell well, but it might not sell enough to go waitlist, to sell out. Honestly, at this point with the Star Wars line, you're probably better off waiting, honestly, because if you can save on shipping, you can save potentially, some bucks finding one on eBay. I mean, a lot of our fellow members in our group, these eBay coupons pop up, and they're buying them on figures on eBay that are currently available on Sideshow. They're getting them for less. It just depends on the character you're looking for, and if you really want to lock in that figure early on. I mean, I'm kind of feeling that way now. A lot of these figures that I have in hand, they're in stock still on Sideshow, and I mean, they're sold out in a lot of other retailers, but Sideshow's deal with Hot Toys, they've got a good quantity available to them. You just never know. You honestly never know. It's really a personal choice as to waiting or going for it. But yeah, man, I know.
Yeah, I think this will be something we talk about in a lot of upcoming episodes too, just kind of about trends that we're seeing. And again, everybody listening, just drink because we're not experts and we don't pretend to be. These are just things that we're seeing, reading the tea leaves, talking to people that in different groups, seeing different things. And if we feel like it would be beneficial to the others, that's why we talk about it on this podcast. Chris, shifting over from Star Wars to that ever popular Marvel MCU, as a recent convert to Ironman collecting, Chris, I was a little like happy, but then also kind of like, ugh, don't tempt me. So they're re-releasing the Iron Man Hall of Armor dioramas from Iron Man 3. They're pretty much reissues, but I think there may be some improvements. So they're selling them in as a solo, standalone Hall of Armor for 125. Set of 4 is going to run you 450, so you're saving a little bit there. And then also having it available as a set of 7 for 765, and that's obviously the most cheapest per unit price. If you obviously get the most, you're going to save the most as well, but you're still spending money, so it's not really saving money. And basically setting it up so you could have marks 1 through 7, just like Tony Stark does in Iron Man 3, has led some to believe that they may finally get around, Chris, to doing the Mark 1 in diecast. They have done an original one. They've done a 2.0 where they improved it, but still was not diecast. You can find all that information on our checklist at scalescavengers.com, by the way. And to be honest, Chris, I don't know. Like, I found somebody on 1/6 Society that had used like a CAD program and fed in the diagram, the size that it's going to be. And to be honest, Chris, I feel like it's probably 3, maybe 3 to maybe 4. If you had DTOFs all lined up and you had them on the top of all of them, that might look pretty cool. But then again, you can't really pose any of these dynamically. They do look pretty cool all lit up, but to have those really excellent figures kind of just standing there, I don't know. I'm all about museum poses too for the most part, but you gotta unleash those Iron Man figures, Chris.
You absolutely do. It's so for me, I feel like it kind of came out of nowhere. I don't recall hearing anything about this on any of the groups, any chatter. I don't know if you had, but for me, it's not really something that I would go for. I mean, I've got a few Iron Man. I got a couple that I'm thinking about getting. it's not, it looks awesome. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of people that have this either have different style displays or custom displays, and they have a whole scene set up with Tony. I forget which one it is. Might be the arc reactor one, or I forget which Tony a lot of people have been using set up with all the Iron Man there. But I I could see maybe getting one and having it as like, you swap out a suit every once in a while, but the whole deal for 765, it's not for me, honestly.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I maybe I might do two. And I'm trying to think about this. So again, we'll get into the collection update in a little bit, but I kind of rearranged what figures I have in what shelves, and I kind of had to do one of my DTOS as kind of I had them separate between Star Wars and Marvel, but inevitably, Chris, I finally got to the point where I had more Marvel than Star Wars, so I have a intermingled one, and I do have one of all Iron Man now, and it's pretty cool. But eventually, like you said, with some of those ones that are coming out this year, it's going to get to the point where it could spill over to another one. So maybe that might be a solution to get some extra space, maybe having some of them on top of one of those. But for the price, I mean, you're talking for if even one of those little things, you're basically talking like two DTOFs. We've joked in the past about talking about bills or expenses in terms of how many hot toys it costs you. Well, I feel like sometimes with display options, you kind of almost have to talk about it in terms of how many DTOFs. And I know that we don't have it in the show notes here, but there's another company out there. I think it was Mondu Case, Chris,
Yeah.
that just signed up with a partnership with Sideshow, and they've got a really cool looking box display that has built-in lights. It's about the size of like an IKEA Besta, and it's very square, and it looks like it's kind of modular, so that you can kind of combine things together. But Chris, I can't get over the price for even one of those small modular things. It's $180. And I mean, if you really wanted to go, yeah, it's so expensive. I mean, I'm like, I'd rather have 3D tops. Going back to that currency talk here, but I don't know. There definitely have been people excited about it. Some people, I guess apparently, Chris, I didn't even know that these things were previously released. I mean, you and I have just been collecting a little over a year now. So a lot of the things we know and find out about, it's just kind of like going back and doing research. And the aftermarket prices on these have been incredible. Like that same like set of 7 recently on eBay, I thought I think I saw a listing that went for like $1,800.
What?
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my God.
Well, maybe it didn't sell, but maybe that's what it was listed at. Sure. But
still.
Yeah, so we're talking about these being available next year. I'm kind of the target demographic for this, targeting those Iron Man diecast figures. I'm undecided. I definitely, again, not a day one pre-order from me, and it'll be interesting to see as we move along here what the demand and market for those are going to be.
Yeah, especially if they do announce a diecast Mark 1. I feel like that might be a slippery slope for a lot of collectors. If they're going to do that, then maybe I just get the whole Hall of Armor and do that deal, but we'll see.
We shall see. And well, other stuff we have to talk about. Chris, you talked about some of those Infinity War figures being in stock. We talked about it last time with Infinity War Cap releasing in Hong Kong. It is now shipping. Actually, by the time this episode actually drops, after I've done all the editing to make us sound better than we actually are, we may actually both have that figure in hand, which is pretty darn exciting. And that's one I've been looking forward to. I've had a spot reserved for it for quite some time. And does it look like it's going to be the perfect figure? No, but it's Cap, and who cares?
Got to complete that Infinity War lineup.
Yeah, well, you still got a chance. You got a lot more figures to go, my friend.
Man, don't remind me.
Speaking of Infinity War figures, so Doctor Strange, as we anticipated, is releasing early. It moved up all the way to February to March 2019. I think, Chris, you had originally had this on pre-order, so you'll probably know this better than I. But I feel like this was what, a July release originally?
Yeah, all the way in July. I think the start of July. Yeah.
That is a big. I think that's one of the bigger jumps. I think Cap Infinity War also had a similar big jump because that was originally going to be April. Iron Spider actually had leapfrogged that. Just wanted to get these figures out, and yeah, we're both excited about that. So that may end up being the next review that we do, but it may not because we've got quite a bit that are building up here. So we've got content for
A,
a long time.
a bit of a backlog.
Final bit of news. We finally got the unmasked head sculpt of Michael B. Jordan for Eric Killmonger, that figure coming out. And I think it was more of a license issue why they could not display that when the figure was first pre-ordered. The face was blurred out. It did say that it was going to include that Killmonger unmasked head sculpt. To me, again, this is like that Hot Toys armchair quarterback thing. Chris, to me, it looked fine. I thought it looked great. I thought it looked just like him. And I guess apparently there's other third-party head sculptors out there that have already supposedly, air quotes, put that to shame with their efforts. And it's like, come on, people.
I know what you're talking about. To me, especially with, JC Hong posted on his Instagram account the head sculpt. It looked pretty sweet. And then Hot Toys then released their promo images with the unmasked Killmonger head sculpt. Again, I thought it looked great. I know the third party head sculpt out there. There might be a couple of them. They look phenomenal, like amazing to the nth degree. But you're getting, you're gonna have to pay a ridiculous amount of money for that head sculpt. From these third party artists and stuff. This is for mass production. I don't know. When it comes to those aftermarket custom head sculpts, you really got to put it in perspective because I don't know. If you really want that aftermarket one, just sell the Hot Toys one and put the difference towards the aftermarket one. I don't know why I get up in all in arms for the it not looking like it's actually a person's actual head that you have on your toy.
Yeah, crazy stuff here. Yeah, yeah, both on both of our parts here. So yeah, good stuff. We'll probably have even more news probably dropping pretty soon, as we're going to be turning the calendar over from December to January. There's a ton of movies coming out next year, and you think about it, we're going to have Captain Marvel releases. We're going to have Avengers Endgame releases. We're going to have Star Wars Episode 9 releases that we don't have a title yet for. And it's definitely, we definitely want to still recommend everybody follow that. What we find to be good advice is just, stick to what you want to collect. Stick to things that you love. If it looks cool or people are saying it's, we're going to be talking about our top figures of the year that we have in hand. Don't just buy these figures just because we may like them. If it's also a figure you're thinking of considering, it's somebody that you like or from a movie you love. And then then that's maybe something you want to go for, but don't just get, any figure just because somebody tells you to, it's good. Again, those are the type of figures that probably are not going to stick around in your collection long. And, depending on how popular they get or how rare they get, you may end up having to sell at a loss. So, just be careful with those type of stuff. But if you kind of already know what's going to be coming out for those movies coming up, I've personally, Chris, I'm tripping over my words here. We haven't even seen the film yet. I don't even know if I'm really going to like Captain Marvel or not, but she does look like a complete badass, and Brie Larson is pretty cool. And we're probably going to get two versions of her suit in that movie. I'm sure they're going to maybe use the opportunity to maybe release another Coulson or another younger Nick Fury and anybody else that may be in the film. And then we got Endgame. And yeah, it's my head's already hurting from all of the mayhem we're going to see in late 2020 and I mean, excuse me, we're going to see a late 2019 into 2020 with all this stuff coming out.
Yep, pretty sure my head just exploded. There's
Get your wallets ready.
I know. And then we got Spider-Man Far From Home and who knows? And then God forbid you collect other licenses from Hot Toys in the 6 scale format. It's going to be interesting, that's for sure, from a financial point of view.
Well, let's talk about some of those fine financial moves that we've done recently, Chris, with our collection update. So I'll let you take it away here. I know you've been awfully busy, and no surprise, those aforementioned eBay coupons, we've gotten quite a few of them lately, and it was kind of to be expected with holiday season coming up. We've had a couple different ones. I think there was one that was 10%. There's been a couple 15% off, and I think you've put some of those to good use.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have. I haven't used every one. It's been tempting. We just had one the other day, and I just had to say, nope, I've already purchased enough for the last couple weeks. So for me, again, I'll reiterate, I'm into the Marvel figures, and I just like filling in the roster of characters and having that versatility in how I can display the figures and eventually display and that sort of thing. So one figure I've been kind of looking after, especially after watching Ironman and realizing that this character has been in the MCU since day one, and that's Pepper Potts and MMS 310. And this one's from Iron Man 3, but it's the standalone figure. And I realized that, like, I need to have her in the lineup, and she's been a key figure, especially with the development of Tony Stark as a character and Gwyneth Paltrow. I think a couple of the movies, her character wasn't portrayed very strongly, but I think going forward, we're going to see a pretty strong Pepper Potts. So I'm happy to add her to the collection. I know it's not a figure that a lot of people are crazy about, just because they say she's kind of Barbie like, but it's when you start looking at this figure, there's way more detail than you get from pictures. So happy to add that. That was an eBay purchase, and it was new and got a good deal on it. No coupon on that one though. I was kind of annoyed because one dropped the next day. So anyway, whatever. So then the next figure is one that I've been wanting basically since I started collecting, and that's Punisher, TMS 004, obviously from the Netflix series. And I did use a coupon on that one, saved me a ton of money. And this one was used, but holy cow, it just showed up today. And I'm really loving this figure. The head sculpt of John Bernthal as Punisher it's just spot on. And I'm kind of looking at potentially getting some aftermarket accessories, maybe building up his arsenal to go in with the display. And I'm excited to put together a little Marvel Knights display with him and Daredevil and the Iron Warrior / Iron Fist figure I've got coming, and then also my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Ghost Rider. So very excited about that one. And there's a couple more.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. So I received our feature figure, Iron Spider. And then I also received on the same day Loki from Ragnarok, MMS 472. Just cracked that one open a little bit. Haven't been able to mess with him. Man, that guy in person he's pretty, it's a pretty nice figure. I know the head sculpt is not to everybody's liking, but hey, it works for me. So anyway, that's my collecting update. Pretty hefty one. How about you? What's new on the collecting front?
Yeah, so I also, as we had talked about it at the opening, I do also have Iron Spider in hand. It'll be a review figure in a little bit. I also did finally get my Mark II that I ordered from Sideshow that arrived earlier last week, and finally had a chance to open that yesterday, actually. Great figure. Definitely glad I added that one. So I sold some figures, Chris. It's always a little sad to do that, but sometimes when you're going to make a collecting focus shift like I did, sometimes there's sacrifices to be made. And a lot of times it's just kind of fine tuning the collection too. So on eBay, and this feels weird because these are two focus characters of mine, but if I have to rank them, they're probably towards the bottom end of, each of them. It's kind of like, as we've talked about in the past, they got voted off of Detoff Island and they're no longer in my collection. But so on eBay, I sold Black Widow from Avengers 1, and it's a great figure, but as we've talked about in the past, I pretty much anything from like 2014 on, I feel like is when Hot Toys really hit the ground running and definitely started making really good figures. So that was one, and I just kind of needed to make space as well. So I'm down to 3 Black Widow figures from having all of them, and that felt a little weird to let that one go. And then it felt a little sacrilegious to let this one go, Chris, but I did sell my Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper disguise. We've talked about Kit Bash figures before. I mean, essentially, this was just the Stormtrooper figure they had previously released with the head sculpt from Luke: A New Hope on there. And I don't know, it was just kind of there in my collection. It wasn't something I was super excited about. I mean, I do love the scene when he rescues Princess Leia in the detention block, and he, gives the famous lines. But again, just in the matter of space, and ended up getting good value for that one, I felt like. And then, not to be outdone, I did let my Hoth Leia go, and I didn't go the eBay route this time. Worked out a deal with a good friend Mark, and that's a figure that he had been looking for, and he was going to be ordering it, and I knew that I was trying to make some space, so we worked out a pretty good deal, and I was happy to help him out. And boy, was he excited to have that. He had some posts on our Facebook group with that, and that's an important thing. We have friends in the collecting community, and sometimes it's not just extrapolating out maximum value for things. There's times when you can kind of create win-win scenarios that help out everybody, and that was definitely one of those. And yeah, so that was that was that. Sad to see a couple figures go, but I know at least one of them has a really good home. So this is the one that I wish I had one of those coupons, Chris, but I feverishly tracked down a Mark 46 from Civil War. I did it, Chris.
Oh man, you bit it, huh? You
I went from having one. So in my defense, I had found one that was used in really good shape. It happened to be missing a forearm missile, and I'm never going to display that with that anyway, so that wasn't a deal breaker for me. And it went from thinking, holy cow, I'm going to get a really good deal, to I just paid market price. I'm not upset by it. I knew it was kind of the the price of just making that a focus. And I had heard a rumor, and I'm going to be very upset if this actually comes true, but I'd heard a rumor a month or two ago that they were thinking of doing a reissue of the 46. And I just haven't seen anything about it. And I was kind of not chasing that one down, thinking that I might be able to do same thing what they're going to be doing with the 43 this summer with that reissue. It very well could happen. I hope so, because it's a fantastic figure. The aftermarket prices are just absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know, maybe that's something that happens down the line, but now I've got it. I don't have to be stressed out as kind of a quasi completist, always realizing that, hey, I don't have that. And I don't know. I'm definitely not displeased with it. And now I'm on track to go for all the diecast Ironmans.
I will wish you good luck with that endeavor, and we'll all be watching your journey and see what happens with that. But no, that's awesome. The Mark 46 is just one of the best versions of Iron Man, in my opinion, as far as the suit and all that stuff. So very happy to see you get that, and can't wait to check it out at your place sometime soon.
Yeah, good times, and that was a fun day. Finally, getting a chance to put all those figures on some shelves because they'd just been in the boxes for a while. It's just, speaking of the holiday season, it has been extremely busy. So I'm glad we had a chance here to get recording with episode 11. All right, so Chris, let's turn the page. Let's get over to our topic of the episode, and as we've talked about in previous episodes, we really kind of wanted to do the Scavengers, the infamous award show that we're going to have each year going forward. I just decided that. And we wanted to have a top 5 figures that we've had from each of us. Caveat being, we have to own them or have owned them during the year to be qualified for the award. And one really cool thing that we did, as I talked about in the opening, is that we wanted to have a community top 5 as well. So we're going to be able to share that. So Chris, I don't know, should we start with ours first and go to the community, or do you want to do those first and then get to ours?
I think we should go community first, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We just decided that on the spot here. So very interesting, Chris. I have to say that. And I have to thank each person that took some time out to give the ranking. So a couple caveats that I believe we had a total of 16 submissions. We asked for people to give us a top 5 in Marvel and Star Wars combined. So that obviously there's been a lot of other great figures with other licenses, but not a focus of our podcast. So we can pick and choose what we want our award show to have as the qualifications. We asked everybody to give us a top 5, ranking them from 1 to 5. And what I did is, if somebody made their figure first place, basically, or top of their list, they got 5 points. Second place got 4, 3 got 3, 2 got 2, 1 got 1. So that way no, excuse me, 4 got 2. I just messed that up. 5 got 1. It made sense. I'll edit that out, maybe not, and I'll just sound like a complete buffoon. I should know my own ratings. I've made perfect sense in my head. I know, I created it and I just changed the rules at the last second. So I think we had a total of almost like 20 to 22 different figures that got at least 1 vote. And that was very interesting. Obviously, some pretty clear trends came out right as we got started here. And the cool thing is for some of these figures, we own most of these. Actually, I think in the top 5, we each own one of these. So that makes me feel good about the list, but there were some interesting ones. So we'll do some runners up afterwards, but we're going to go from 5 to 1. So Chris, the number 5 figure from our listeners was Hella, and she received 5 votes with an average of 3 ranking each time for a total of 15. Number 4 was Spider-Man Deluxe. And actually, my other caveat should be, if there was a deluxe version of a figure available this year, what we did is we kind of condensed votes together so that we were kind of combining those things together. So Spider-Man Deluxe, some of the other ones we'll talk about, just so that we're clear about that. So Spider-Man Deluxe got 4 votes. It had an average vote of 4.8. So people that voted for Spider-Man came in strong, Chris. I think the votes were 3 first place votes and 1 second place vote, and no other votes. So had a total of 19 for our number 4 figure. Our number 3 figure was Iron Man Mark IV with a suit up gantry. Got 6 votes, an average of 3.2 for a total of 19. So it had more votes than Deluxe. So that's what broke the tie on between Iron Man Mark IV and Spider-Man Deluxe. Our second figure, and I thought for a while, Chris, this was going to end up being the number 1, but our number 1 figure came in strong with a lot of votes. So between our first and second place figures, each got 9 votes. The difference being the number 1 got a couple more first place votes, and that's really what sold the deal. So Yondu Deluxe was our number 2 figure, 9 votes, averaged 3.1 for a total of 28 points. And Chris, drum roll, please. So our top figure for the year from our listeners was Thor from Infinity War. 9 votes, an average of 3.6 for a total of 32. So it had 4 votes on Yondu, and with Thor getting 32 points, Yondu getting 28, the next closest was Mark IV with 19. So those two were out in front by quite a bit. We've reviewed Thor. I do want to get your opinion on Yondu. We probably will have that be a figure that we'll review early in 2019. And from what I've seen of Yondu, it definitely looks like it's well deserved. So, Chris, what about some commentary about those top 5?
I was really curious to see where this top 5 was going to go. I was kind of looking at where people were putting their votes, but I wasn't really adding them up. But I did notice that Thor and Yondu were at the top of a lot of people's lists, and I'll tell you my list shortly, but I can't really disagree with any of these choices. The next 5 or 6 figures that came in after those ones, it's interesting to see what other figures were kind of knocking on the door of the top 5.
Yeah, so we'll go over the runners up just because some of these votes are really close, and again, tiebreaker being number of votes. So the number 6 figure was Anakin Skywalker Darkseid, ended up with 15 points, but only had 4 votes. Darth Vader from Empire Strikes Back also had 15 points, but only 4 votes. So that was actually, both of those were tied for 6 technically. Number 8 was Luke Skywalker Return of the Jedi, had 14 points, 5 votes. Captain America concept art came in at number 9 with 12 points, 4 votes. And, that may be a figure that people didn't really have in hand quite yet, being the end of the year. We didn't really stipulate any of those other things. Anakin Skywalker from Revenge of the Sith, non-Darkseid, had 7 points. As you can see, from 9 to 10 was a big drop off of about 5 points. So Anakin Skywalker, non-Darkseid, and then Emperor Palpatine Deluxe also had 7 points. So a pretty darn strong overall top 10, and obviously, that the top 5, what we were looking for. So I thought that was really cool. Hopefully we can kind of keep that tradition up, and, as the community continues to grow, we'll hopefully have even more submissions next year and get a really good consensus of what's there. So, Chris, I think it's time for our top 5. And what I'd like to do is, I think each of us has a couple runner-up figures that we'll talk about afterwards. But let's alternate. We'll each go with our number 5, 4, 3, and eventually get to number 1. So, Chris, what was your number 5 figure of 2018?
I swear I didn't know your list before I gave mine. Hela was my number 5 figure of 2018. I love that figure, and I'm glad that we got a villain, kind of a secondary character, so to speak, to fill out that display.
So my number 5 figure was Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi. It was probably my most anticipated figure of the year. It was one of the first pre-orders I had from Sideshow when I first started collecting. And the reason why it's not a little higher, just a couple little nitpicky things about, the figure in general. I think one of the biggest things is just a lack of an extra right gloved hand to be able to hold the lightsaber. But overall, head sculpt is great. I love the fact to be able to display him in kind of the throne room, taking off the cloak and then the extra Jedi tunic that he has, going to Jabba's palace. Obviously, he's one of my boys, Luke Skywalker, and I actually, for a while, didn't even have him in my top 5. He got unseated at the last second here, and I'll talk about who he took that spot over for when we get to our runners up. So, Chris, what was your number 4 figure?
My number 4 figure was Ironman Mark V. And for me, I know it's a lot of people don't necessarily think that the Mark V suit is that iconic, but for me, I just love that scene in Iron Man 2 where he fights Whiplash on the Formula One racetrack. I have a history in racing and stuff like that. So I just love that connection. And I even picked up Whiplash to eventually put him in a scene with. But the sheer detail that they put into that figure with the scalloping of the armor and that sort of thing, he's got to be in my top 5. So I got him at number 4.
And I agree with that. Just having opened that yesterday and finally get a chance to, I didn't really pose him around all that much. I can definitely see why he's there. And had I owned him for longer, there's a chance he probably would have been in my top 5, which I guess is kind of a spoiler. But anyways, so my number 4 figure, Chris, was Anakin Skywalker, the non-dark side figure. And this was again a figure that I didn't anticipate getting. I didn't have it on pre-order. I actually got it after reading the Thrawn Alliances novel with between, very centric on Thrawn, who's one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, and Anakin Skywalker. And the head sculpt alone is why I wanted the figure. And I mean, the figure is just phenomenal. The tailoring, the I guess you can call it like the pleather, Jedi tunic. And again, as we talked about it when we reviewed this figure, Chris, I mean, vertically imposing. I didn't realize that he was so tall, especially when you have him right next to his galactic son and Luke, and just seeing how short Luke is compared to Anakin. So yeah, number 4 figure coming in pretty strong there.
Awesome. Great figure, man.
All right. So Chris, number 3 figure.
Number 3 figure for me is our listeners, our members' number 1 figure, and that's Infinity War Thor. We just reviewed him, a couple episodes ago or whatever it was, and it's a top-notch version of Thor. If you want one Thor, I mean, he's the one to have. He's got all the bells and whistles, all the gadgets, everything you could think of. It's a great figure. So Infinity War Thor, my number 3.
So my number 3 figure, and this was a late addition, and I think this speaks to how strong I feel like this figure is, knowing that I received it broken from Sideshow, but having the chance to get it out of the box, just to see how well the armor is put together. I love the color of the armor. I didn't really expect to have it as much of a contrast as it came, just based on the promotional images. So my number 3 figure, Chris, is Iron Man Mark IV without the gantry set. I know a lot of people did get it this year because of that. And the interesting thing, and I know you know this story, Chris, because earlier this year, I was strongly debating getting I was going to get one Iron Man for my collection, and I was strongly debating between the 4 and the 6 at the time. I ended up going with the 6 just because it was in the end of Iron Man 2, but also in the beginning of Avengers, and that was kind of my, okay, well, that makes sense. That's what I'll go with. And at the time, I didn't know that I was eventually going to change my mind late in the year like I did. I cannot wait to get that displayed. Just kind of as a recap, I know I talked about in the last episode, Sideshow finally did get back to me. They are going to be sending me a replacement part. I'm just going to have to wait a little bit longer for it, which is okay. I don't trust myself to fix both magnets on the helmet. I did get some super glue and stuff because, as we'll talk about in a little bit with Iron Spider, I'm going to have to do some of that on my own. But yeah, I definitely very pleased with this one. And the fact that it comes in so strong in my top 5, I think says a lot about how great they did with that figure.
Wow. I'm pretty surprised. It's a great Iron Man. I just haven't watched Iron Man 2. I can see where I can see where you're at. I'd love to see that figure in person too. Great looking Iron Man suit.
All right, let's get this.
Yeah,
we got each of got number 2 and number 1 left for both of us. So Chris, what's number 2?
Number 2 for me is Yondu Deluxe. I just got him a few weeks ago, and I couldn't be more pleased with that figure. He's got all the good stuff that you want with a figure. If you want that versatile display, the head sculpt to Michael Rooker is, I mean, in certain lights, it looks like it's him on set. I mean, straight up. So I just love that figure. So yeah, he's number two, and I don't I just cannot wait to display him with the rest of the Guardians. So yeah. How about you?
And that figure is always going to go down in podcast infamy because it's the figure I told you not to get because it wouldn't need to go on waitlist, and like
Yeah.
literally the next day it did. So
Oh
any of our
well.
listeners that have been following along since the beginning know that that grief that I always had. That I'm glad that I can shed that burden knowing that you've got that figure in hand now.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Chris, my number two figure is concept art Captain America that we recently just reviewed. And I knew it was going to be a good figure, Chris, and we had our thoughts on the recent review, but even having a little bit more time with it, I still feel like it's in the top three of the Captain America figures that I have. And there are a couple things that I kind of wish they had done a little bit differently with having the shields be die cast, having an unmasked head sculpt. But the things that make it a plus is number one, it's Captain America. Number two, the suit is phenomenal. Number three, the articulation is incredible. I hope it's something that they continue to do for other figures, that it gives it that dual articulation slash just looks good and on the shelf and kind of the museum pose. And there's not many figures that Hot Toys does that allows you to do both. And I think that's one of the first that they've done. And it's certainly not a material that I would be worried about posing in a certain way for a long period of time and having it end up with creases. And it, again, we'll talk about that in a little bit with Iron Spider. But yeah, it was very close between that and my eventual number one. So, Chris, drum roll. Your number one figure of 2018 is
Spider-Man Deluxe from Homecoming. That's my number one figure. And I base that off of my reaction when I received it and opening it up and just being like, wow, this Spider-Man figure has everything. It's got everything I need with Spider-Man. It looks spot on. It's got an amazing head sculpt. And it's just a fun figure with all the articulation and everything. And so I just absolutely love that figure. And I'm really glad I got the deluxe, and I'm glad I got it from Sideshow when it was in stock, or I had pre-ordered it just in time. And so yeah, that's number one for me of 2018, Spider-Man Deluxe from Homecoming.
very, very strong. I endorse that very much. So my number one figure, and it's kind of anticlimactic at this point because I actually did agree with our listeners, and I had Thor as my number one. And I won't rehash the same exact story that I told on the episode that we did review him, but was not a figure that I anticipated getting. And just the fact that the promotional images didn't really sell me on it, but what did sell me on it was Thor's role in Infinity War. And then I'm not really that swayed sometimes when I'm on the fence, especially, but once people had this in hand in Hong Kong, we had some people in our group that had the figure very soon after release. And I think it was during Spooktacular that I'd actually put a order in for it. And yeah, I'm so glad that I did. To me, it's the ultimate Thor. Love the head sculpt. Kind of wish it came with a meow meow, but I'll take Stormbreaker as we talked about. And yeah, I don't feel like I need another Thor in my collection. Now, what happens in Endgame, or if the character continues on in the MCU, we don't know anything about what the plan is going forward. I think that's nerve-wracking and also exciting at the same time. But what solidified it for me was his role in Infinity War, as I said, and just it's a badass figure. I definitely am very glad. And for me, the reason why it got the top spot, it was a combination of love the role in the movie, that just the combination of the head sculpt, and definitely when I opened it, I was like, yeah, this is definitely very. There's times when you open it, like, yeah, I'm kind of excited about. Well, I'm excited about anytime I get a new hot toy to open, but that one was definitely just the one that I feel like it had that kind of awe factor that Not saying other ones I got this year didn't have, it just had it a little bit more. So that was kind of my sliver of getting that ranking.
Awesome. That's, I mean, we got some good figures there, all just top notch figures, and I'm glad that we had such interaction with the group compiling the list. And like you said, maybe next year we'll have, at least twice as many people, engaging with it.
It
Yeah.
was it was actually a lot harder than I thought, because when I looked at, and we talked about it last episode when we did a lot of filling in of back collection stuff, that when it came to new figures this year, we didn't actually have a ton to choose from. So even getting a top 5 was a little difficult. And then trying to figure out if it was actually released this year or not. I tried to adhere to that. I'm pretty sure our list was pretty solid in that aspect.
Hmm.
And I'm just kind of taking kind of rotating my head around, my collection of other things. I mean, other figures I got this year that I didn't mention, BB-8 from Last Jedi, Rey from Last Jedi, Mark 6, Mark 5, Mark 2. I think Mark 47 actually was a 2017 release. Obviously, Iron Spider, Advanced Suit, Black Widow, Infinity War, and obviously in Thor. So when it came to actually coming up with that list, I mean, it wasn't like I had like 30 figures to choose from. It was a little bit more condensed than that.
Yeah, that was my problem, because then I started looking at, I bought so many figures that were released in previous years that I'm like, shoot, I have less figures than I thought I did to, that qualified for this. And so I had one solid runner up for me was Concept Art Cap. So that would have been my number 6 figure. And I haven't had enough time with Iron Spider and Loki to have really put them in the running. But did you have any? You said you had one like runner
Yeah,
up.
so the one that I dropped off my list, it was number 5. Actually, I think it was number 4 at one point, and I kind of slotted it down a few, but was actually that same figure that was your number 1, was Spider-Man Homecoming Advanced Suit. Again, I love Spider-Man. I love that figure. I love the contrast that suit has. I needed to make sure that I had Luke in my top 5, and that's how I got it there.
Cool. Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's like picking your favorite kid, basically.
It's tough. But
all right. We've referenced Iron Spider, Chris, quite a bit through this episode. So we're going to get to our feature audio review of Iron Spider. So let's give the specs on this one. Obviously from Avengers Infinity War, MMS 482, retail for $259. Went up for pre-order on April 20th, 2018. Chris, what does that mean?
Day 1 pre-order?
That is day 1 pre-order. And this shipped to us from Sideshow on December 4th. So like you said, we've only really had this in hand for about a week or so after the ship time, basically to go from California all the way up to the East Coast in New Hampshire, where we both reside. It takes about a week. So if they ship on a Wednesday, sometimes it's there Tuesday, Wednesday, depending. And obviously with the holidays, that's kind of leading to a little bit longer ship times than normal. But Chris, let's kind of talk about this overall. I know this was a figure, just kind of given the background to it, obviously loved Tom Holland, Peter Parker in Infinity War. I thought he definitely did well. I had a whole bunch of one-liners. I knew before even seeing the film, and we did pre-order this before we saw the film, and it was definitely one that I personally was looking forward to quite a bit. I know, Chris, you were kind of in the same boat. And this one's a little difficult because I love Spider-Man. I kind of have the MCU focus Spider-Man. And, I loved him in the film, and it was definitely a figure that I wanted. I know a lot of people, Chris, were a lot of concerned about the suit and the material used. And I think that's kind of the elephant in the room that I think we need to kind of lead this review off with, is because the long-term effects of leaving this in dynamic poses. I don't know. Let's just start off the discussion there, Chris, and then we'll kind of get into the accessories and everything.
Sure. It the material is it's this weird kind of pleather latexy kind of stretchy material that you look at the photo promotional photos and everything, and you can clearly see bunching and that sort of thing, and it's risky if to leave it in these poses long term. I just again, I haven't had it for too long to be able to mess with it, but watching some of the reviews, like PJ had a review on it and some other great reviews on YouTube, it's kind of one of those things where, hey, I'll put in these poses for a little bit, but I'm probably just going to be moving it right back to museum pose, or whatever the pose that it's in when it's in the storage box. But for me, I'm going to tread lightly. I'm eventually going to get to it. Unfortunately, it's freezing cold in my basement right now, so I don't want to mess with it too much currently. I don't know. Have you had a chance to mess with it at all?
I did move it around a little bit. So again, like you said, we haven't had the figure in hand all that much, and I certainly, number one, haven't had the time to give it the put it through the rigors of more of just in having it in hand and kind of articulating and stuff around. I'm absolutely terrified of even moving anything on it, and it's one of those things. I feel like it's going to look badass in a collection, and like you said, I thought, I think I'm going to end up rating this one on two different scales. And we'll talk about the aesthetic and the look of it, and then kind of what it means is having it be a Hot Toys figure versus a statue. And I think that's kind of where we'll eventually get to. I will say, though, before we even get any further, I am still glad that I got it. I don't have any regrets about that. It's just, I kind of knew what I was getting before I get it, so I can't say that I'm even that disappointed. I think I'm more just confirm what I had expected all along, and knowing that I'm actually okay with it.
That's a good way to put it, because I right on the same page as you. I'm definitely glad I got it too. And it's going to be one of those figures that I'm probably going to play around with and then just put it back to, just a normal stance or whatever. He had such an awesome role in Infinity War that there was no way I couldn't get this figure. I love Spider-Man. I love Tom Holland's portrayal as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And he had one of the more emotional parts in that movie. So,
the part when he said it smells like a new car in there.
Yeah. I love it. It's totally Peter Parker right there. I mean, it's just, and the fact that we even got Iron Spider in the MCU, it's just amazing. My catchphrase there.
Amazing drink.
It's fitting for the character, but it's a cool concept for the figure, but the execution of the figure, I can't really fault it too much, because it's way more than I could even imagine. Like, I don't know what the alternative would be, because some people are saying, do you want a Hot Toys or do you want like a 12-inch Marvel Legends figure? So with all the joints and everything, it's kind of, you got to pick and choose, I guess.
Yeah. That's probably one of the best analogies that you can kind of have, for that. And, I've seen some people be pretty creative with some dynamic poses without really stretching it too much. To be honest, Chris, even with the material and using the dynamic flight stand, even if I put a lot of these figures come with extra like rubber padding and stuff. I know the Ironman figures have it like in every single joint when you open it up, like the foam padding. I don't think I would have the figure in the flight stand without having that on there, just so that the flight stand plastic isn't making direct contact with the suit. It looks phenomenal. Like you said, Chris, I don't think they could have done it any other way. And Yeah, I'm okay with it. So let's talk accessories because this thing
Okay.
came pretty loaded.
Oh yeah, he's got.
And I think the thing I opened it, and I was a little disappointed. And me and magnets right now, I guess, are just not going to get along. And the head sculpt that came that you can change the eyes and not the electronic version had the magnet fall out of it. The glue came undone. So I need to go back and redo that. I think I've kind of learned my lesson from the Mark IV and get have super glue on hand now and just know that sometimes I'm just going to have to pair some of those little minor things. I won't hold that against it right now. I have it displayed with the electronic eyes version. I don't have the batteries in. I've said in prior episodes I'm just not a huge fan of that. I may change my mind at some point now that I kind of have a lot of Iron Man figures. So the head sculpt looks phenomenal of Tom Holland. A plus for that. And I think I noticed, Chris, and I'm sure you did too, because you also have the advanced suit one. He's more looking directly ahead versus the homecoming one where he kind of is looking to the side. And I think that was a good change. I think the thing that was interesting about this one, though, speaking of that magnet underneath the head, it's the neck actually has a magnet on the top. It makes it a lot easier to interchange the heads with these, and also allows for a lot of range of motion with that too.
I think that's probably one of the coolest features of this figure. And I'm hoping that it's a trend that Hot Toys uses going forward. Maybe not for every figure, but for figures like this that have a head sculpt, unmasked head sculpt with a suit body, it really, I mean, you just pop that thing off, put a new one on, get it in a nice pose, and it just adds that much more to it when you're setting up a scene or taking a picture or that sort of thing.
It came loaded with hands, 12 hands in total. And the interestingly enough, it came with a mask, and that's interesting because it's kind of like a nanotech Spider-Man suit, which they included. It's not like a huge deal breaker for me at all. And then the spider web, the open web effect, and then the 4 different lengths of string if you wanted to display it with that. And then, and Chris, I have not popped on the Iron Spider legs on the back. I don't know if you have or not, but those actually came out really good. And looking at the instructions that are included with it, basically you just kind of pop off the plugs off the back, and each one of those legs goes into a designated spot. You don't just randomly put them all in. And I think I may end up displaying it with that. I don't have it on there now, but part of that iconic look with Iron Spider. Obviously, I personally like this version of Iron Spider than, the red and gold suit that he had in the comics. So bravo to the development team on this costume design.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that point. With the tri-tone coloring, it just pops like crazy. But yeah, the legs or the arms, whatever you want to call them, they're articulated, and you can get them in all different sorts of poses, and the detail on those is quite good. The paintwork is spot on. It goes to show that Hot Toys really puts that extra effort into all these little pieces so that there's nothing that's skipped for most of these figures.
Yeah, overall, I'm pleased with it. And even having this in hand, it could have been qualified for my top 5, but it didn't really get any serious consideration, Chris. And this is probably one of the first times that I might overall go with something. I'm my gut feeling, and let's go with on number of web shooters. We'll just keep it nice and simple here. Usually we come up with something even a little bit more outlandish than that, but we'll go with number of web shooters. And overall, I'm just really struggling with this one, Chris, because I like it, but then I don't like it. I love it, but then I don't love it. I'm conflicted.
Yeah, I know how you feel. It just leaves you a little bit. I mean, as crazy as it is of a suit and design and everything, it kind of leaves you just wanting a little bit more versatility and not having to worry about damage with the suit I've heard of some people buying two of them and really messing with one of them and having the other one just set up in their display. And there's always that possibility if you want to throw another $250 at a figure. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm not all in 100% satisfied with this figure, but I'm also not regretting purchasing it, and it's not one that I'll be looking to sell, move on from. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. Not any consideration to sell whatsoever. I'll leave it in the statue, pose that I have it in and still enjoy it. So, Chris, how many number of web shooters you giving this one?
I'm giving it three out of four.
That's what I'm giving it as well. I thought about 3.25, but that's just kind of just sounds absurd. So I'll just keep it simple. I'll go with 3. And I want, again, we're not out there buying tons of these figures. We get these figures because either they're a character we love, a film we love, and we're overly, I wouldn't say we're biased towards the positive, but we're also not being super overly critical of these things as well. It's just a fun little exercise to go through, especially I know, I've talked to a few of our listeners before in the past, and sometimes they'll be considering a figure, and sometimes just hearing our take on it actually sometimes will help them make the decision of yay or nay on that, which to me is, I mean, that's just super cool. Very humbling on that. So we'll see. I know that, PJ the Paradox Nerd definitely had some high praise for this, also some similar concerns in his review. So check that out on YouTube. And yeah, this is definitely one of those figures you're going to want to do your research on. We're just one source out there. There's other YouTubers like PJ out there, other people that do a lot more video reviews. Definitely check those out. Chris, I think I may have seen that video you're mentioning where somebody left it in poses overnight and then looked at the impact of it, the following day. So check that out if you want to see that. Yeah, just do your research and if it's something you're considering, but I think if you're a Spider-Man completist, I think you have to have it. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you're definitely could be on the fence about this. And, otherwise, I just think you might be able to just kind of let it go. But I think we're both kind of happy that we do have this.
Yep, happy to have it. And I'd like to hear what other people have to say, in the group and stuff like that when they start getting them. It'd be interesting to see what other people's takes are on it.
Absolutely. So, Chris, I think it's that time. It's plug time. Let me get out the deep breath here and we'll rattle through this. Before we even get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to Zach from the Collecting Weekly podcast. He'd contacted me a couple days ago and he'd let us know that he appreciated our little shout out for the Geese Giving video that he helped put together over helping out there at Tashi Station. So Zach, thanks for tuning in, and definitely have your podcast as well to give a listen to here coming up soon. Chris, so we got our website, sixscalescavengers.com. Those checklists that I mentioned, they are updated to include the Luke Skywalkers coming up, included the Hall of Armor that are out there now, and links to things on eBay. So that's one way to help support the podcast is if you're thinking about getting a figure on eBay with some of these sweet coupons that are out there, just clicking through our link to go to eBay helps us. It kicks a few dollars back to Chris and I so we can put towards the hosting fees of this podcast. We greatly appreciate that. We also have our TeePublic store. We have a couple designs out there. Again, another way to help support the podcast. So we have our traditional Facebook page. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram. We've talked at length, Chris, about this private group, and I think we're approaching almost 50 members now, and we're growing pretty steadily. It's probably the thing that I'm probably most proud of that we've done.
For sure. It's great every day seeing what people are posting and questions people are asking, just showing off things. I mean, some of the newer members on there, Lavelle, Matt, TC, Ryan, and so many others showing off their recent purchases, displays, all that stuff. Some funny pictures with Chris on there. He had his elf on the shelf literally hanging out with
that was awesome.
Luke Bespin. So and then just we've got members like we said, that put out YouTube videos, YouTube reviews. They've got their own channels, John, PJ, and a number of other ones. So, yeah, just a lot of info being shared. Definitely check it out if you haven't joined yet. And yeah, it's a great vibe on with the community on there.
So you're already listening. If you think you have a friend or family member that you think would also like to listen to us, we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and directly on Libsyn, sixscalescavengers.libsyn.com. We are part of the Brick City Blockade podcast network. Check them out at brickcityblockade.com. So, Chris, I think that puts a finale on our supersized episode 11. A lot of great chat with news, top fives, good figure with Iron Spider. Any final thoughts?
No, it's been a great year. My first year in Hot Toys collecting has been prosperous. The collection's growing, and I hope to continue that through the new year. Just liking what we got going on here.
Absolutely. So, happy holidays, happy new year. We'll see everybody first thing January 2019 with our next episode. We're not going anywhere. And until that time, Excelsior.
Excelsior.